So anyway, yeah, I know people been wanting sports and feel like it's going to help them. You're able to watch basketball, which is an amazing product, but and football coming up, and everybody loves football, I guess. But the interesting thing about the NBA when it comes to how I feel about it is everyone has something to say, and not just have something to say. People really be thinking they know what they're talking about. And I guess it bugs me. Like, it really, I don't know. It should bug me, but it does. And the reason why is I really think that when it comes to basketball, it's compared to football, basketball, you can explain to maybe even someone who doesn't comprehend the way you assume they should, right? And that's why they have different positions. The way they have. That's why you might have 1 through 5, or what does a shooting guard usually do? The game has changed now, so is mostly positionless basketball, right? But things still based off the skill set. Things are still based off of what a player can and cannot do. I think what tends to get lost is with the game constantly changing. I think that for people who studied the game, and it all depends what the definition or how you view the term study, right? Because there's people been watching basketball all their lives and their opinions are still trash. But for anyone who really enjoys basketball the way I do, the way I see it, what has changed, same thing with football. You have the fantasy leagues, and everything is based around stats. Or when you change the perspective of when you're talking about some of the greatest of all time, you're basing everything about, okay, how many championships did he have? And what ends up happening is so many people are added to the conversation. There's never any nuance to it. It's just people like it's weird because if you've been around in social media since MySpace, you're able to build a page from scratch. And it took a lot for when somebody go there, they see everything that's going on. Facebook, when it came out, was very simple. You can say what you want to say, and then you can move around, right? And I think that's what happened with social media in general. Everyone wants to throw in. It don't matter if they just throwing shit against the wall. Boom, I'm said it. You can type whatever you say, post it, and walk away. And what's happening, a lot of nuance is missing. A lot of perspective when it comes to these things. And this is just things in general. We're talking about. I can talk about politics the same way. I can talk about music, any type of entertainment the same way. I talk about life the same way. There's not too many people can that are nuanced enough to explain themselves the way they should. They just feel like, hey, I want to say it because I want to say it. They're here to get their rocks off, right? So when it comes to NBA basketball, I'm just start out with Giannis, right? Uh, Giannis, it's been this big debate. Who's Giannis as a player? How good is he really? And I think I, now when you end up thrusting yourself into superstar, the spotlight, the expectations change, right? You know, I think people forgot what year, 2013, 14, 15. So when Giannis came in the league, they didn't know who this skinny kid from Greece, who he was, right? It was just like, all right, well, this is going to be a project for the Bucks. This is so random that the Bucks picked this player, but the Bucks, they couldn't. It was hard to figure out what you were going to do when you're, at the end of the lottery or right out of the lottery, right? And they end up picking up Giannis in the process, and with that, they have taken advantage of player development. I think that's the most important thing to have, right? And in the process of player development, Giannis has become he's a player now where he's dominant in what he does. He's a hard worker, and it shows on the floor that he's a very passionate and go hard. He goes hard a lot. Like the same way some people might view Westbrook, Giannis might be in that same arena of Westbrook, right? I think it might be a little different because the way Giannis is being coached, especially the last few years of Budenholzer, is he's not going to be out here putting 40 minutes a game, right? But I think that with the NBA constantly changing, first and foremost, it starts with everything with Steph Curry and basically the Golden State Warriors has done. I think that we are not doing Giannis. We're doing Giannis a disservice as a league. And I think this comes down to coaching, right? Giannis is only 25 years old. He's a young, humble kid, and he cares about the process, and he cares about, and he does everything he can to trust the people who are in charge, which in this case is coach. And I think the problem with the NBA now is if you're not getting an open shot in the lane, and that's almost questionable, we need to get open threes. Yeah, Chris. Yeah. So he's the thing to wear. 31st ran most talk about in the league since Kareem, but I believe it's excitement. So yeah, and the thing about Giannis is I think what people tend to forget. So like I was saying, the league has changed over time. And the problem I have now with the way the Bucks play or Giannis is playing or how he's been coached to play is you either live and die by the layup or the three. And I don't think that's the way to go. It's good to have range. But my problem is if you're not teaching a player how to have a mid-game range, why are you expecting him to shoot 25 footers? You know what I mean? Like that's a buildup, right? The thing about Kevin Durant and Steph Curry is they're so elite shooting the three. They can get their shot off anywhere on the floor. Devin Booker. They've been able to, they can, if they needed to get a mid-range shot, they know exactly how to do it. But the biggest threat is if they start hitting threes, it's over, right? But at least they have something that's between the paint and the three-point line, that they're still a threat. And I think what people tend to forget, for example, I'm glad you mentioned Ray Allen. Ray Allen said this. He said, earlier in my career, that, the way the game was, people wasn't shooting as many threes as they are now. He said, if I had a game and I shot about 4 threes, 5 threes, at one point, if I'm making or missing, I feel like I was settling. There were people saying that Larry Bird even practiced threes, right? We just like, it's still the percentages are lower regardless if you're wide open or not. I mean, no one wants to, it's good to get open shots. You want to get as close to the basket as possible. And we've watched people like Jordan and Kobe shoot difficult mid-range shots, regardless, no matter what, still a two, but very difficult mid-range shots, right? But it's still about getting buckets. And for any great scorer, they just need the ball to go in the basket. They need some type of rhythm. And with that rhythm, with their legs getting under them, knowing that, okay, I kind of released it too quick. It's kind of like with, I heard, even though I feel a certain way about George Karl and his way of how, this narrative about Carmelo Anthony that went forever. George Karl said, you can tell that when Carmelo Anthony goes up, whenever he lets go of the ball at a certain part of his shot, that's ball going in, right? And that's why now people appreciate players like, you look at Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, CJ McCollum, you have Dame who has the range, but these guys who still have a mid-range and still can shoot the three. I mean, Jimmy Butler, he had a tough time shooting three this year, but overall, you see it's a confidence. You get a couple shots off, and I think with a player like Giannis, I tell you this, if people remember how they loved LeBron early in his first stint in Cleveland, that's how we should look at Giannis right now. We forget that Cleveland was a 66-win team. I understand people talk about roster. I used to debate dudes all the time. Like, Cleveland's not as good as people think. Y'all are here trying to tell me about some Mo Williams and Jamario Moon and Candace Parker brother and all those other Big Z. And I'm like, yo, fam, they're, and we seen what happened to Orlando Magic, right? That was, to me, on the Cavaliers and LeBron for not playing Kobe in the finals. But besides the point, I digress. Anyway, so what would help a player like Giannis, instead of saying, okay, if you can't Euro step spin, if you can't power your way to the lane going downhill, maybe we'll try to set you up because they're going to go under the pick or they're going to leave you open for three. So hopefully you can make a few 3-point shots. But what will be great for a player like Giannis, instead of going straight to threes, if he had a mid-range where you look at, how we look at LaMarcus Aldridge. You look at his the post up, how we view Dirk Nowitzki. Or if you look at the side shot, not really from the elbow, but how we view Tim Duncan shooting, right? To me, that is going to help Giannis more than anything else. And I feel like we are failing him. I tell you, and what I mean by failing an elite player, not too many people know the importance of a player like Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was an elite player before 1998, 99, 2000. All these, when things started coming about, his, steroids, and I know people always had an issue with his character. And hold on a sec, I'm gonna try to do something. So, oh shit. So yeah, Barry Bonds. So when you had players who, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, who really wasn't the most talented baseball players, they can hit far, but they wasn't talented like Barry Bonds was. Major League Baseball gave them so much attention that it affected a player like Barry Bonds. It's like, I did all this, and this is what got y'all attention. I understand he hit a lot of home runs. It was huge for baseball to have that attention, especially after the lockout they had. It was one of those things you kind of had to figure out, right? But you failed a player like Barry Bonds because he felt like the best way in order for him to be on a certain level was thinking that, okay, well, I think this is what y'all think is the thing to do. I guess I'm going to do that. And interesting enough, the person that gets shitted on the most is Barry Bonds. Now, I understand he wasn't the easiest person to deal with. Media, they're not really the biggest fan, and it always changes the narrative of how people view a player. But that's what it looks like when you fail a player. If this guy you want to be in the position he's in to be one of the greatest, one thing you don't do is sell him short on his process, any appreciation. And I feel like the same thing is going to happen with Giannis, in a sense where you're forcing him to, man, we need Giannis to shoot 3-point shots. Let Giannis be an elite mid-range shooter, at least, where if Giannis can't make a three, he shoot 2 threes, right? Because people didn't really, the game was still different, but people really didn't have an issue with Miami when LeBron and Dwayne Wade were shooting threes. And LeBron and Dwayne Wade, they shot around 35 to 40% threes, but they didn't shoot a lot of threes. They was getting at the lane at will, things like that. But they didn't shoot a lot of threes like that. And I feel like with Giannis, everything is based around, okay, we're going to have, there's a lead defensive team this year. You have some 3-point shooters. I feel like Giannis can do so much damage if he was able to have on the left or right post, right? A little bit outside mirror range. You see LaMarcus Aldridge do damage. And then even with LaMarcus, he'll make a couple of those. All right, he might throw in a 3-point shot here and there. And I feel like that's the issue I have the most when it comes to, the way Giannis has been coached and the way the NBA is set up right now. It's interesting because everything is based off of stats now. Like I said, when you look at fantasy, people love talking about stats. You debate most people, they always want to tell you about numbers. But there's no nuance. They don't know the game. They don't give a fuck. But it's so much more to it. It is so much more to it. And it's this constant failure where you almost feel like, okay, I'm surrounded by dummies when it comes to these things. It's kind of like I barely play 2K online and on the park because I don't feel like playing players that, yeah, they paid all this money to get these guys up to 99 and they dribbling and doing all of these different things. And I built a pretty simple player and they're like, you trash. Like, I don't know basketball or something like that. Let me try this again. But yeah, once again, it's I'm trying to do this thing on Facebook and I'm trying to do Instagram. So what up, IG? But anyway, so once again, I just feel like there's a slow failure to how the NBA is and how it affects players like Giannis. And I feel like if you are coaching Giannis, this might not be on Budenholzer. I don't know. But what I do know is you know, you just can't expect the guy to start shooting long range 3-pointer shots where he's still trying to figure out his free throw. Try to perfect his mid range at least. At least have him work from the post where when he has his back turned, he get the ball. When he turn his body, turn his shoulders, he's in triple threat mode. He can pump fake. He can put the ball on the floor. He could do a quick shot. He can do all these different things. That or Giannis can find you know, you can bring more. You bringing them double teams. Giannis can find an open person on the floor, right? When you constantly failing to look at it as, well, Giannis should just start from uh, he should start from the middle up instead of trying to force him to be a 3-point elite shooter. And this, you know, the funny thing about it is people are mad at AD because he's shooting too many 3-point shots. People are mad at Joel Embiid because he's shooting 3-point shots. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is it going to be? Do you want these big dudes to shoot threes or not? Right? Especially when it comes to your superstar players. Yes, it's good to have that in you know, your arsenal, but you have to force a team to stop you from what you are good at. And even if they can put a zone on Giannis to not get to the lane all the time, but you know what will change teams the way they might play defense on him? If he has that post game where at least he can get a couple shots in, but doing some hook shots or doing a like a small bunny shot or some off the backboard from the side like Tim Duncan does, or some. Remember, I don't know if y'all remember, but y'all remember when he played against the Knicks a couple years ago, and it came down to the last shot, and he had a post up and a turnaround jumper over somebody significantly, I think, smaller than him, and made that shot. It was like, oh shit, that's crazy. Imagine Giannis doing that all game. So then instead of him taking 5 to 6 threes, he's taking 3 threes, but he took probably 4 to 5 to 6 of those mid-range shots in the different capacity of mid-range, and he's able to get a few of those shots in and be more confident. Oh, okay, now I'm gonna shoot the 3. Oh, okay, now when I drive to the lane, I'm not scared to get fouled because I know make my foul shots. That's why when rest in peace to somebody I still can't believe Kobe fucking dead. But um when Kobe Bryant was talking about his issue when it comes to AAU compared to the European players, right? A lot of these European players are taught through perfecting their skill, perfecting the basics, the fundamentals of basketball. And I understand athleticism is everything. And you can and it's a few players that we've loved and seen that when they lose the athleticism, what do they still have? Look, I make this case about Vince Carter all the time. I understand people love Vince Carter. I rock with Vince Carter. But no one can really tell me, okay, 20 years, a good 12, 13 of that was just, super mega. Yeah, he was able to work on his 3. He was able to still do some things that you like. And the narrative changed about Vince Carter because usually when you look at players like Iverson or people in the realm of Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady and things like that, we just look at like, well, you know, you slowly push him out of the league. Vince Carter was able to still get them checks. He was still able to make an impact in the locker room, things like that. But I look at it as, you know, past a certain point when the physical part of him kind of deteriorated, you know, it was just like, nah. And so, the interesting thing is the skill player is still going to win. Like, look at Steph Curry. He's not this super, he's not Russell Westbrook on the athleticism. But guess what Steph Curry is going to do? Have another, he's 30, 31 now. He's barring like catastrophic injury, he has another 9 years. Look at a player like Sean Livingston. Speaking of, let me go on a Warriors tangent. Can we stop talking about what the Warriors did to basketball when it comes to on the negative side of it? The Warriors saved the NBA and these GMs and these presidents and these owners to stop being incompetent. The Warriors did everything that everyone has tried to do. What do I mean by that? So, you draft well. They didn't have top 5 picks. You drafted Klay Thompson. You drafted Steph Curry. You pick up a Draymond Green. And then your highest pick was then your the highest recruited or touted player was Harrison Barnes. I think you picked 7th. Could be wrong. Was that Steph? Anyway, but he was still the top 10 pick too. With that being said, you build a team around that. You bring in a free agent like Andre Iguodala. People didn't know where his career was going to go. Why? Because after Philly, he went to Denver. Denver, he was but he wasn't sought out as a veteran presence for a team. Sean Livingston, people thought his career was done. You look at a player like David Lee. It's kind of like he was Kevin Love before Kevin Love in a sense, except, he didn't have as much range. And he was left-handed. But, he on a bad team, you probably going to put up 20 and 10. You look at the foundation of what the Warriors were and see how they build. You build something like that where you draft pretty well. You get some really good veterans to have on your team. And then you have player development to make sure that Draymond Green, he becomes this Swiss Army knife. And then you find a way to have a system where you have 2 elite shooters, 2 of the best shooters of all time, and evolve, and I understand Mark Jackson's offense wasn't based, but he knew right then and there, this is the best shooting backcourt in history. And you're so good that you actually get the attention of a highly recruited free agent, which happened to be Kevin Durant. If people really would comprehend, knew what was going on, there were articles coming out February that year saying that Kevin Durant has a chance to sign with the Warriors. This is how. And people didn't believe that shit. What really helped was that because they were slow on the come up, figure some things out, made the Bogut trade with Monte Ellis and so forth. What ended up happening was Steph Curry had them ankle injuries and he didn't have a major contract. I think he's making like $11 million a year. And this is before, everything really changed where everybody's going to eventually get paid. And then you have a system, you have a culture that it gets attention of a top 3, top 2, top 1, depending who you are, player. That's what the Bucks is trying to do. The Bucks wish we have somebody we drafted, Giannis. They made a few trades of some unwanted players. They've had a few free agent signings. You have a strong veteran presence. So it would be great if they had something like, wow, insert elite athlete here. I'm interested in signing with the Bucks. Now, market's different. Obviously, is not the Bay, but that's what every team tries to do. But they're incompetent. And it bugs me how much people get so upset over these things. Download this video. thinking that, you know, Golden State cheated the game or something like that. It's unfair. It's not watchable. Fam, I'm telling you right now, Golden State was able to raise the stakes for a lot of the teams to, like I said, stop being incompetent. Now that the Warriors did that, what ended up happening? The Rockets said, "Oh, you can do that. I didn't know you could do that." You try to get Chris Paul, get him to come to Houston. You see how that went, right? And I know the thing started out with the Boston trade, with KG and coming to Boston, and Ray Allen coming to Boston to help out Paul Pierce. You have LeBron James forming with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh for the Big Three in Miami. But you look at how a lot of teams function. They was hoping to be a team like the Warriors, and so now it caused people to say, you know what, we can take these chances to get these players. Now you look at the NBA now; they don't mind having a really strong two, and hopefully, if they don't gut their roster, they have a three on their team somewhere lingering. I think people tend to forget that. So, and before I roll, one of the things that I feel like loses when I'm talking about, we're talking about regular season, video game stats. What tends to get lost is there are players that have these very, very, very insane numbers, and then it looks different in the playoffs, for better or for worse, right? Um, you have some players like, you know, it's about expectation at that point, right? Some people going for championships, some people trying to build a legacy to, they still have a future ahead of them. That's why people have this appreciation of Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell. Because, like, man, they perform so well. Man, be honest with you, I don't, they might have an issue where they probably would never become champions. When you're young and do some of these things, people love you. You get older and do the same things, people don't like you. Ask Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo is the old head who's been doing things that you look at people that love Kyle Kuzma, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, things like that. High volume scorers and shooters. Can they do anything else? I don't know. They don't stop people from loving you when you're young, and then you get old, they just think you trash all of a sudden. That's all he do. It's a weird narrative that kind of changes over time. You know, so my thing when it comes to, like, if you look at Harden, Westbrook, who else has an insane regular season? I guess the perfect example was those two before they were teammates. You get to the playoffs, it's hard for them to average 40, 10, and 10 in the playoffs. No, because the game is slower, right? But I think what's been interesting is people have a huge appreciation for players like Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, actually, I'll rewind. I forgot who they were talking about. No, I think this is Jimmy. But yeah, so Jimmy Butler this year averaged about 20 points. He was averaging like 26 and 5 this year, right? Now, 26 and 5, 20 points, six, I think, rebounds, 5 assists. You built that up 20 years ago. You are a top all-star elite player. Now people just kind of be like, yeah, man, it was good. It was cool, I guess. But I think he at least, there are players who are, they have longer reaches than he does. That's not as physically, like, intimidating as he's not as physically intimidating as these other guys with certain skill sets. But to me, people should have an appreciation for a Jimmy Butler simply because he's the player that we remember in the 80s. Well, I say more the 90s, 2000s, right? Where, you know, it was it was only a handful of guys that was averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in a season. But we kind of just be like, now But then you look at in the playoffs, you see how that works out for a guy like him. Look at Kawhi Leonard; he's not putting up these astronomical numbers, and in the playoffs, you see how he's playing. It's like, oh my god, man, he's amazing, stepping it up. It's like because their game is a lot. It's a lot. It's more transferable from regular season to postseason. Unlike you look at some of these guys who's able to average a triple double. Yeah, you're probably able to do that in the series. You're able to, but you're gonna have games where it's just not gonna work that way, fam. You look at the Rocket system; they almost had it. They could have won a championship, maybe, or Chris Paul injury, whatever. I don't know. I think they would have lost against Golden State no matter what. But it's hard watching a team shoot 46 threes. How the fuck do you miss 27 3 points in a row, 3 pointers in a row? The difference is, all right, I'd rather see the Rockets miss 14 threes in a row. But guess what they did with the other 13? They was able to dribble a couple times and shoot a mid-range shot. You left how many points on the board? 26 points on the board right there, just off of 2 pointers. If they just made all their mid-range taking one dribble after somebody assumed they shooting three with a pump fake or some shit like that. And even at that, they still left an abundance of points on the board. All right, even half of that. You still left 15 points on the board just doing that. Just like or like I said, same thing with Giannis. They make a couple jump shots. Now we gonna go back to the three. I seen the ball go in the hoop a couple times. Speaking of 3 pointers, the NBA so fucked up. The Rockets, look, it's good to guard the three so a team don't make the 3-point shot to win the series. Fam, you still got to guard the two. You still need to guard the paint because if this instead of trying to go for the three to win the series, you know what the Thunder should have done or could have done, or if maybe somebody else inbounded the ball, throw the ball in the lane to Steven Adams, tired going to overtime, and give yourself more of a chance. That's the thing Chris Paul was talking about. Chance, give us a chance. We just want an opportunity. We want a chance. That chance was thrown away. So I mean, that's all I gotta say about that. The reason why I'm so kind of hard on stuff like this because I see the same thing in football. There's so much passing. There's dudes quarterbacks that are trash and they passing the ball. And the two things out you come to realize, Patrick Mahomes is the exception. Number one. Number two, and even with that, still had to run the ball. Still needed really good defense. That's always going to win. But the thing that people are devaluing the most is literally the most important things. That thing that's helping these quarterbacks get paid because of the numbers. That is running backs. Example, I don't think Tom Brady is this elite athlete. His resume is amazing. But he's more death of a thousand cuts. That's how you win. That's great. That's cool. But besides his tight end and his running backs was the most important things he needed. That's why you need really good wide receivers, but you see why it was so important. Because why? Because he was the dip and dunk king. Get occasional pass over top. That's where I think it fell Peyton Manning, because if Peyton Manning kind of played more like how Brady did, because Peyton Manning was still trying to throw them out passes, still trying to throw the sideline. It was about timing because he never really had the strongest arm. But you look at some of these running backs as, man, he's not going to be valuable in a couple of years, but Kirk Cousins get to eat, even though he had elite wide receivers in, Minnesota. But he gets to eat because you have a running back that's competent to catch the ball and run after catch. That's why it's important. The two things you got to look at when it comes to these stats, you can say, oh, man, this dude passed for, and his passing percentages was like 69%. What is his yards per average when it comes to thrown? What does these numbers look like when it comes to, okay, he had 4,000 yards passing this year. Probably like 2,500 of that was probably yards after catch. And sometimes, numbers, and It's about perspective. Some people have them numbers where they go hard, after they're down a lot. I think Dak probably fed off of that. You're not going to run the ball anymore, and then it looks like Zeke numbers is trash because you behind in the second half trying to catch up. So that's pretty much it. Just chop it up real quick. Holler at your boy. I just want to have random moments. I just been wanting to say this. If you're watching, you're watching. Thank you. If you didn't watch, man, you're kind of missing out. Um, you know, so have more of these, man. Holler at your boy. Take care of y'all. Be safe. Get money. Yeah.